Hey there, and welcome to YAS, a stripper podcast. On this podcast, we'll discuss how classifying each other as people and workers is dangerous to society and marginalized groups of people. We'll also talk about the climate in and outside of the strip clubs and all of the amazing things that strippers do. And of course, we'll talk about all of the things in between. I'm your queen, AM Davies, and this is YAS, a stripper podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of YAS, a stripper podcast. I want to give a shout out to my friend, Emily Keith. Emily sent me this really cute t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, and it says Empower across it. Emily has a brand called Healing Art Society, and she makes things like coffee tables and like keychains and necklaces and earrings and t-shirts, and it's all unique hand-designed stuff, and it's just incredible. And so I want to give a shout out and say thank you to Emily Keith for sending me this really dope shirt that says Empower across it. And empower indeed, my friends. That is something that is, I feel a rise in today's world. Although shit is cray AF, right? It's fucking nutty as fuck what's going on out in the world. However, at the same time, I'm noticing that more people are becoming empowered to step up and make a difference in their community and make a difference in their lives. And our guest today is Valerie Stunning, and she's someone who not only is she herself empowered, but she empowers so many other people out there, so many other sex workers and so many other, I'm just going to say it, so many other whores out there, women that want to be a whore, want to be a slut. Like women like Valerie Stunning truly do empower women like me who need to hear other voices. And then there's even women not like me, but that need to be empowered, women that need to find their voice, and they find it through people like Valerie Stunning, through people who just have the need to speak about what's going on and how things can be different, and imagining a new world. And through people like Valerie, just through existing, they empower hundreds, thousands of people to dream and to desire and actively work for a new way of being in a new life in a world where sex workers and women are cast aside, put away, told to be quiet. You don't belong here. And so we need to maintain our voice, and we need people to help us through continuing to fight for our fucking rights, man, believe it or not. After all this time, we still need to fight. So it was actually really extremely cathartic talking with Valerie as well. I think we found a lot of similar ideals throughout our conversation. We think very similarly, which isn't surprising at all. A lot of sex workers these days feel very similarly in what's going on in the world and what's going on with labor and what's going on with the stigma, man. I'm so tired of it. So yeah, it was really great. We actually talked a little bit longer than I normally talk to guests on this show, but it was worth it, man. So I hope that you enjoy and truly listen to what this multifaceted, extremely intelligent, thoughtful creature has to say. So yeah, I'm just gonna let you get to it. So go on and enjoy listening, and yeah, talk to you later. I'd like to welcome to YAS, a Stripper podcast, our next guest, Valerie Stunning. Hi, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is actually a dream come true. So thank you so much for being here. I've wanted to have you on this podcast for a while, actually. So I'm so glad that this worked out and that you're here with me. So thank you.
It's an honor. I'm stoked.
So, Valerie, a lot of people know who you are, but for those that don't know who you are, let's get to know you. So where are you calling? Where are we talking from today? Where do you live? What's going on with you?
I live in Las Vegas, and we're talking from my couch, surrounded by all my white fluffy pillows, because that's where I feel most at home, most at ease.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're in Vegas, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. You dance.
For Mecca.
Yeah. See, for some reason, I thought you were in New York a lot.
See, I'm from New Jersey and New York.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and before Vegas was my home base, New York was the last home base I had. And in between all that was a bunch of traveling and hobo stripper life.
Oh, so you were a traveling stripper for a minute.
Yeah, for many years.
Wow. So how long have you been stripping total?
Up until the pandemic, I just hit my 9-year stripperversary.
Lovely. Yes. Yeah. So you got to dance in New York, New Jersey, Las Vegas. Where else have you danced?
I actually didn't dance in New Jersey, but Jersey was the first strip club I worked at as a cocktail waitress when I was like 19.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you think that that job as a cocktail waitress like kind of gave you the spark to want to be a stripper?
I would love to say yes. I think it's a nuanced answer. So yes, I got to see a lot of the freedom that stripping allowed the women that I witnessed doing the job. But at that point, I was just like bogged down with a whole lot of whorephobia and not ready to admit that I too like could or wanted to do the job. And I remember reading old journal entries. It's kind of crazy. I'm like thinking like at that time, just having very strong opinions of feeling, this separation from my job and what they were doing. And I'm not proud to admit that, but I think it's important in like my journey overall to kind of like be true to that response. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And you said I'm not proud to admit that. I actually think it's something to be really proud of that you overcame your horror phobia, that because I'm dealing with the same thing, that I overcame mine and I feel guilty about it, but I want to share about it because so many of us have been conditioned to be horrorphobic. It's like not our fault, basically. And that was actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because I'd really love to hear more about that. Like what was your whorephobia like when you were in it? And then what were some significant things that happened to sort of get you out of that state of being?
Those are really great questions. I would say, I grew up in the 90s and dealt with a lot of like the slut shaming that comes along with, being a female in your fucking youth, right? And then between that and always being like this, I feel like I've always had this very strong personality and this very strong sexual energy to me. And because I was like slut shamed a lot, whether by peers or my mother or, boyfriends I had at the time, it was just like, okay, well, by the time I started working in a sexual environment, like a strip club, right? I was just like, I feel like that was really internalized. And so I needed to create this separation to prove to myself that I was still a quote unquote good girl and that there was like nothing like bad about me because I was somehow different because I wasn't doing that job. And so I feel like at that time, that's how it was like internalized when I was cocktailing. But deep down, I was like jealous. I thought it was rad. There were so many moments like that I can remember stopping, in the middle of the room, like I still did up until COVID, to like appreciate what was happening on the stage and this transaction between the women there and the men there and sensing that there was power behind that. But I just didn't have the language or the self-reflection, or the life lessons to really kind of put those things together. But I'll tell you what, there's one stripper who totally influenced, probably changed my life. And she and I, maybe we exchanged like 3 or 4 words, like, but I remember just one day she was cashing out, and it was part of my job too, to like help cash out the girls at the end of the night. And she's like, okay, I'll see you in a few months. I'm going to take off and go traveling now. And I was like, what do you mean? Where are you going? She's like, oh, I just saved this whole, like a shit ton of money. I'm going to go backpack like through South America. And that was like the first light bulb in my mind, like that went off, being like, holy shit. Like, that is so empowering. I was like raised in New Jersey, working at this like highway side strip club in New Jersey, had never left the East Coast at that point. And it was such a far-fetched concept to be like, wow, you can be by yourself and a woman and young and have this freedom and go do the thing, that you want to do. And that this job gave her that. And I think that really like lodged itself in my mind, because 7 years after that, I went and did the same exact thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And you were younger when you had that experience, because you were bartending at like 19, right?
Yeah, I was cocktailing because it was like a BYO strip club.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
You said that you worked in a highway side strip club. Those, I gotta tell you, like, because my family lives in Pennsylvania, so I get to go to the East Coast, and there's like a lot of countryside highway driving that's done out there, and I see these strip clubs on the side of the highway, and I'm so incredibly curious. I've never been inside. Can you tell us what it's like comparatively to like a strip club in the city?
Ooh. Well, the place that I worked at, it's no longer there, and I think it was called Lace. And it might be related to the one in the city. I'm not sure. But, I mean, it had all the trappings that, like, a good titty bar has. The black lights and the little comfy chairs around the stage. But it was quite small. And like I said, it was a BYO. So, for me, cocktailing was, like, serving $20 orange juices and, plastic cups for people's bottles of vodka and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess.
Like, is the clientele different?
Yeah, the clientele, and also maybe the management. And then again, I'm coming at it from like the perspective then of a cocktail waitress. But I felt like the management wasn't as scummy as like some of the bigger city like clubs could be. It was a lot more mom and pop feeling.
Yeah, well, I would also imagine that their overhead is a lot lower, so they don't need to steal as much from their workers there, probably, because they can't make as many bills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like, this industry just systematically relies on stealing money from strippers in order for them to keep their doors open, which is something that, like, I know that is also on your radar. I know that you really loved being a stripper, as did I, but you definitely, because I stalk you. I pay attention to what you write a lot. Actually, you're a genius writer, so thank you so much for the things that you share. But yeah, I know that, you see issues with our industry as well, particularly with our labor rights. What can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, right? But I guess from my perspective, after a few years of doing the job, I didn't really start writing about what I was witnessing or the connections I was making to like how fucked patriarchal capitalism is, and then how it translates to what happens in the club. And because yes, the club is this microcosm of the world, but it almost feels like it's even more like saturated of a version of what happens in the club sometimes, especially when it comes to things like extortion and intimidation. And I didn't really start writing about that until I was like, 3, almost 4 years into the job. And I think it took a long time for me to really admit that all of that was weighing on me, and it was getting me to a point of like severe burnout, and I was depressed, and I was dealing with isolation, and I didn't know how to really articulate what I was feeling because I had no other stripper friends. I was going to work and surrounded by all these women all the time, and none of them I really knew outside the club, except for Jack, but she lives 3,000 miles away. and then another friend or two that I had made like when I was living overseas, but no real sense of community. And it just got me thinking, like, what a bummer. Like, because there's so many moments when I feel empowered because I get to live a life that I choose because of the freedom this allows me. Yet here I am depressed and alone, and I don't feel like I have anybody I could fucking talk to about it. And that sucks. And so, yeah, that's why I started to just kind of write about it. But yeah, I think ultimately it's so nuanced. So like what actually causes it, right? Like how these men in positions of power feel like they can get away with the shit they get away with, and so much of it comes from stigma, right? And the people who do the job as a stripper don't feel like they have a place that they can go to safely talk about what's happening or feel like anybody's on their side, because the job is stigmatized and because it's scary and it's often dangerous. There's that, and then also like the lack of pride that a lot of us don't have for doing this job and being successful at it because it's, again, stigmatized. And that's like trash. And I think for me that was really like a wake up call to be like, man, here I am working a job that's really fucking hard, and I'm, in my definition of success, I felt like I was at that time, and even up until I retired, or was forced into retirement, let's say, that I was really successful at it because I was able to pay my bills and put food on my table and do the things I wanted to do. And I grew up in a household where that wasn't even like even thinking about leaving the country and traveling the world was like far removed, So I felt like, damn, that should be something I should be proud of, and yet I'm not really told that I should. And in fact, I feel like most of the people I spend my time around, even people who seemingly care about me, right? I feel like I have to hide it or downplay it or defend it all the time. And that got me motivated to just be like, no, fuck that. Like, look at what it takes to actually do this. Look at how successful we can be. A lot of us coming from places of like, just like not having shit, and then being able to finally like do something that like allows us to have shit. And I think that's important to celebrate. Yeah. And that's why I started talking about it, and what I've always wanted to like champion is that there's a lot of people and I consider this a blessing, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling.
No, you're great. Keep going.
But one of the things that I really I'm really, I guess, moved by, like, from my 9 years of doing this job, is learning how many of us have these interconnected stories. How many of us, like, we all have different stories, and we all have, come from different places of privilege, and some from no privilege at all. However, I think there's so much that connects us. A lot of us have been through so much shit before even doing this job and have survived so much. And it's what makes us good at it. And there's almost like I don't want to say sisterhood for sounding cheesy, but it kind of feels like that. Even if you aren't rah-rah, we're all friends at the club, you still have this kind of bond knowing that, like, I'm a fucking bad bitch who's gone through a lot, and I'm holding shit down just by being here. And I see that in you. And that solidarity is important. And I feel like I really got that from the club. And, like, feeling better about the things I had survived and been through because I sensed that in others.
Yeah. I mean, you just said so many amazing things in that whole piece there. And something that really just stood out, well, a couple of things. One is that that we stigmatize ourselves and each other to a degree. And I think that, yeah, you're right. That is a lot of why, like, we're not talking about labor issues, because I feel like a lot of, you know, something that I hear a lot in my work trying to organize and unionizing is, if you don't like it, don't be here then. Like, if you have complaints, then don't do it. And it makes me, how that occurs to me is that this is like, basically, this is the job, shut your mouth and do it, because this is the best it's going to be for us, you know, as if we don't deserve better. That's how that statement occurs for me, that you and I don't deserve better, so shut the fuck up. When someone says, if you don't like it, then don't. And that's coming from other dancers sometimes. I'm not speaking, I mean, of course management says that, of course. But these are, you know, there are just some of us that are so, like, married to the way things currently are. And I think that does stem from, like I mentioned earlier, the conditioning that women who do this work don't really deserve much better. And I think that for me, for a while, I agreed with that, you know, and then I woke up and I was like, no, just because it's this way doesn't mean it has to continue to be this way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing that you said was at the end, which I can't remember now, because you said so many wonderful things. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on any of that I just rambled about?
Yeah, I feel it's scary for a lot of people who do this job to, like, want to hope for better, if that makes sense.
It is very scary.
Yeah, because that takes risk. That takes mobilizing and participating and really putting yourself out there. And there's so many of us who just either don't have that privilege, because there is privilege behind being able to organize, you know, and taking the time to kind of show up and, like, fight for this shit, because you put yourself out there and you never know who's going to be knocking on your fucking door, like, telling you to shut your mouth, you know?
About it. Yeah, it's something that I think about all the time.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes it could be easier to just try to keep your head down and go, this is the way it is. And I don't know. I don't blame anybody for that, but that at the same time, it's very defeating. And it's hard to it's hard to get mass amounts of people on board who might feel like alignment to what you're championing and what you're talking about and the things you want to see, like, different. I see you as, like, a collective you. But at the same time, yeah, there's so many people, right? Like, this is the thing. Some of my dearest friends who are in the industry, we have this conversation often about, man, sometimes you just get to a point because it's exhausting organizing. And I feel that. and because it feels like we're up against so much sometimes, that it would just be easier to, like, do what everybody else has done before us, get the fuck out of the industry and never look back.
You know yeah. And I don't blame anyone for not taking action either, because you're right, it's terrifying. And I know, because I'm, like, deep in it, you know. But I remember the other thing that you had said that I wanted to touch on, which is you mentioned that you didn't have a lot of community, and that's in Vegas. You were working in Vegas when you had that sense, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just talking to someone recently about Vegas and how it's so different from other states and cities, and she's going to be an upcoming guest, and we're going to really break down the difference between Vegas and other places, because here in California, I definitely felt like I had a community. But when I did work in Vegas, because I did work there for 3.5 years, I did not feel that.
Yeah, Vegas is this whole it's a machine. Like, and that sense of oppression and intimidation and extortion that happens like everywhere is almost like threefold here, because the clubs are so massive, and because the women are transient, you know, like most of the people who work in Vegas don't live in Vegas, and it's get in and get out and get your money and just like go home and go back to your life. And yeah, sometimes it's easier to not like stew in like what's actually happening at the clubs if you don't live in the city where it's happening. And I say this from experience because my first 3 years was like on the road, and I never spent more than a couple of months at one club. And so any of the things that ever happened that weren't, you know, the greatest, I could easily just put behind me once I was like on the road again.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that what we always did? Oh, this club is fucked up for all these reasons. I'll just go over here, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Vegas is yeah, it's a weird place for stripping, I guess, when you really break it down. And the sense of like intimidation is
Oh, it's crazy.
Extraordinary here.
And then like the way the taxi drivers and like the clubs are all like in cahoots with each other. Like the taxi drivers are such a huge facilitator for the strip clubs. It's insane how interconnected those two industries are in Vegas.
Yep. Yeah. Like Uber drivers probably make more than I do some nights.
Oh, 100% they make more than we.
There's a problem with it.
I mean, if little tip, if you want to make hella money, be a taxi driver in Vegas. Those fools make so much money. So much money. Yeah, what? It's $20 a head every time they bring someone to a strip club.
More.
Some clubs up to $40 a person now.
Maybe even more than that, honestly, like depending on depending on the season.
Yeah, crazy. So gosh, you're so awesome, man. You're just the coolest, Val. I just got to tell you. You have a new business now. So you were forced into early retirement. I'm assuming that's from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So you opened a new business, but you were still dancing at the same time?
Yeah, I opened, I started Paradise City Creamery. Officially, we launched May 2019, but I had been working on it since 2017. And by like 2018, I was ready to phase out of stripping, but not like forever. I never really wanted to say I was retired. Oh no. Yeah. I was like, fuck that. I want to be like 60, still grabbing my clear heels if I can, you know? And yeah, COVID had other plans for me, and yeah, there's a lot that goes along with like being forced into retirement, as I'm sure you know, as many of us are experiencing. Yeah, but one thing it did put into perspective, and I'll touch on those things in a minute, but like one thing it did put into perspective was how much I was actually leaning on stripping for comfort, because I was good at it and I knew I could go in and make my money, and there's something very humbling and intimidating about being a newbie again, being a baby stripper again in a new career. And yeah, being at the club was like, I was leaning on it a lot more than maybe I could have been, because COVID showed me that if I just put all my eggs into one basket, right, and went for it, I could do so much more than what I was actually getting done with the business. Yeah.
You chose ice cream for your business.
Yeah. Well,
and your marketing is like so lush and sexy and edgy, you know? Yeah. So it's like luxurious ice cream, like luxurious sexual edgy ice cream. That's
I'll take it.
Why ice cream, Valerie?
It was something I was doing as a hobby. So even throughout my stripping career, I was always doing other creative endeavors. I did burlesque for a while, and that gave me like this great outlet for all the weird and wonderful shit that happens in my head. And because of the production value associated with it, so I could like build these amazing costumes and choreograph these acts and kind of have this outlet for all of this, right? And then when I decided to phase out of that, I was left with like this void, if you will. And ice cream was just something for me to tinker around with when I had this time as a creative and nowhere to put that energy. Because at the same time, it was almost like, now that I think of it, right? Just like this divine timing. I was starting to realize that I had like severe gluten and dairy intolerances, and I couldn't eat ice cream anywhere or dessert, period. Like, because most restaurants, especially in Vegas, don't give a shit if you have dairy or gluten anything. They're just catering to like the overall, right? And so I was just like, oh, I'll just start doing this just kind of casually and like just to tinker around. And then I got really good at it. And then I was like, well, if I was ever going to start a business selling ice cream, what would that business look like? And it got me thinking. I was just like, shit, I spend so much time talking shit on the internet about how different of like a world I would love to see. And what if I could implement some of that into the structure of a business? Like, from the people I hire, right, to like the other brands and businesses we collaborate with, to the organizations we donate to, and really like tell a story about the world that I come from through this medium that is ice cream. And that is like the essence of the business. Yeah.
I love that. And so you're an out sex worker with a civilian business now. And so so basically what you've told me gives me more insight on like why it's important for you to be an out worker and this business owner, or be an out sex worker and be a new business owner, because it's almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're like recreating your story through this business to like sort of raise awareness and like normalize our work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, fuck, Vegas it's many things, but it's, you know, first and foremost built on the backs of sex workers, and stripping is so much of that. And it is one of the 4 reasons why people come to this city, and we influence and inspire so much here, and we get none of the credit. And I feel like I'm but one voice, but man, like, it'd be cool to have like a little flag planted in the Vegas soil that like was for us, and, you know, celebrated us in a way that no other businesses do here, except for just take our money when it's time to buy new clothing or shoes or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. Was there anything that you bumped up against during this process of like starting a new business as somebody that's out and loud and proud?
What I'm really noticing, you know, I haven't experienced any like outright hate. I've definitely had some trolls, as we all do, on my like Google business and Yelp pages. But what I'm really experiencing is it's hard, not hard. I would say it's difficult to have the press cover what I'm trying to do or what I am doing without like almost trying to structure it like some redemption tale of how ice cream saved me from this terrible life of stripping. And I'm just like, oh my God, are you fucking serious? Like, yeah, I think it's, you know, I already knew it was going to happen, but you really see how hard it is for people to digest us being these complex creatures who are capable of more than just one thing. And yeah, that's probably the thing I'm really working out of right now. It's just like can't you just let me tell my story and let people figure it out from themselves? But no, everybody needs like a 30-second soundbite that is perfect and like just hits the point like so dead on. And I'm like, well, that's not real life.
Yeah, they're really good at editing things to continue to perpetuate the narrative that they created ages ago. And it's like they're all in cahoots with each other. Like there's some written document floating around that's like in agreement, that's basically like, if you're in the media, make sure that you continue to perpetuate the stigma that strippers are helpless and not, and I'm so over it. I've been calling them out for so long now.
Yeah, and we need more of that. Keep doing it, please. I'm hoping one day it's like, unless, I don't even know. I don't even know if somebody like Cardi B has escaped that. I haven't read all her press, but it almost seems like unless you go into some other form of entertainment, then you have to have some reason why you're doing this other thing, because you couldn't possibly be like going back into the civilian world like for any other reason than, you needed saving from this life.
Good for you. You escaped. Yay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God. No fucking way.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's interesting. They can be so disappointing. The media, so disappointing. But thank you for the media at the same time, just like everything, I guess there's a duality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So COVID, so you opened this new business and then COVID happened, and you mentioned earlier that you were able to pivot. So how's that going for you?
It's going pretty well, actually. Yeah. Pivoting allowed us to see how we could bring in additional revenue streams that I wasn't considering before, because the initial concept for the creamery was meant to be very hands-on, so to speak, interactive, built for like events, and to have people like participating in a way that allowed them to kind of, I guess have more of an experience than you would versus, when you just pick up an ice cream pint and take it home and eat it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we got really lucky. We were able to partner with this amazing wine bar in town, and where it's located is in the heart of downtown, and I live downtown, and so it almost through COVID and just all of us going through so much and experiencing a lot of a similar thing, right? It almost allowed us to connect directly with the community in a way that maybe we wouldn't have if we were still like going for these big events and like conventions and festivals and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so to explain to the audience who doesn't know and who haven't looked at your Instagram account, your ice cream is like, there's like colorful candies and crazy straws and can you explain what makes your ice cream place more of an experience and difference than like me going to Cold Stone?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the three magic words here are adult experiential ice cream, right? and that applies more than just the branding and the sexy images of people licking it slowly, which we have plenty of, and that is very intentional. But it really applies to the experience of eating the ice cream and how the ice cream is actually made. And so we're not making flavors that you could pretty much get anywhere. Like a Cold Stone Creamery isn't going to use white truffle or, yeah, exactly. Or ingredients maybe like activated charcoal, or that's kind of becoming trendy now. But I like to build flavors that cater to an adult palate. I don't dislike children. It's just that I don't come from a world that really deals a lot with them. And so ice cream, naturally, when you tell people I started an ice cream business, they think you're going to be like slinging it out to the kids at the park. And it's like, meh. No, actually, it's more for like adults and their friends or their boo for date night and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we do this 2 ways. One, by the flavors, like I mentioned, right? And like having, using really exotic ingredients and things that you don't typically find in ice cream. And then the other way is attention to details that you won't normally find. So that comes from my burlesque world and my costuming years, where I just rhinestoned the shit out of everything and made it extra as fuck all the time. And so I can't serve you just a regular waffle cone. It has to be hand painted gold, and our cherries have to be glittering, and there has to be like these elements to it that really make you stop and appreciate like what's happening, right? And almost like take your time and like have a moment, and I think that makes people feel special, like to know that we put that extra love and attention into it, which makes it an experience.
Yeah. That's really nice. That's really nice. It's like art food. Like
Yeah.
artistic food. Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't love opulence, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great word for it. And that's definitely something that I feel when I'm looking at it. Like I'm looking at Marie Antoinette's dessert.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Put that on my Yelp review.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I can't wait to eat your ice cream, man. I can't wait.
Love it.
Yeah, I have to come out there to eat it.
Yes, please.
It's not that far. It's only a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
I used to do it every weekend of my life. Back and forth, every weekend, back and forth.
Oh my God. I don't know how you like this. The past is the part that kills me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You just get used to it, you know. Just, and I would do math with the road signs, you know, like to keep myself entertained. I would be like, okay, in the next 50 minutes, I'm going to go this many miles. And then I would do the math when I'd get to that many miles and like see what my timing was. That's how I would entertain myself on that drive.
That's amazing to know that that's how your brain works.
It was just to keep me stimulated so I wouldn't fall asleep, you know, because there's just nothing on that drive on the 15 between Los Angeles and Vegas. And man, I saw some crazy stuff on that drive.
I bet.
And you do it enough times, see the gnarliest stuff. Yeah, I just love talking about working in Vegas because I don't get to talk about it that much.
Yeah, I feel you. Just like even being on your podcast right now and talking about stripping and things other than, you know, I love my business. I love the creamery. I'm obsessed with it. But it's like, man, ever since COVID happened and it was forced into retirement, it was just full-time ice cream all the time. And it's really nice to like talk with you right now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've realized, do you ever open Instagram and immediately get distracted? You open it to do something, right? You work, you open it, and then you see like some really sexy babe on the pole, and you just like get lost, like stuck in a K-hole.
Yes.
Watching sexy babe.
Uh-huh.
Right. Like we did at work. And so I did that the other day, and I'm like, never ever will I tire of this. Never. I swear. I've been watching this for 20 years and I'm just never ever tired of it.
Yep. That's so real.
Yeah, and it feels slightly obsessive, you know.
Well, there's something about it too. Like once you've associated with the lifestyle and the culture and have done the job too, it's just like, man, it's pride. I have so much pride when I stop and see sexy babe on the pole, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, I know. And God, I just miss it so much.
What do you miss about it? Like, do you have one thing particularly that you miss the most?
I miss the moments where I made the room come alive on stage, where I knew that my energy was invoking emotion and like making people so stoked that they can't contain themselves and they just started screaming out loud. Like those moments, because it's more about, oh, they're cheering for me. It was like, oh, I moved a group of people. Not, oh, I'm so great. It was like, really understanding the power that one individual has to move a room of 100 or 200 people collectively at the same time, having them crescendo and excitement at the same time. There's like nothing like that.
No.
That's like rock star stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that was so poetically put. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are like, so I used to dance to The Only Time by 9 Inch Nails. And I danced it very intentionally because it says, "This is the only time I really feel alive." That's one of the lines in the song. And man, I felt that, you know, on stage. Like true aliveness, you know. And I know that there's not all of us that feel that way. There are some that feel that way more than others on stage. And so I really I look for that. Like I look for that aliveness with the dancers. Because I just want to like soak in that, you know, and like that energy that's deep inside your chest. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's like exploding. It just needs to explode. And the only way to truly get the energy out of your chest is to do the deepest, hottest back arch on stage. You know what I mean?
So good.
You can just feel like the sexual energy just being released from your body as you do it. And you just, it's just so gratifying, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I used to do this thing on stage. I really love playing with stillness on stage. Yeah. And like fluctuating between lots of movement and then just picking one person. And like, especially if you have a high stage at your club and walking like right to the edge and just standing over them and looking down and in being so intentional about like the piece of clothing you remove or the way you squat down to get their money and just that vibration. It's like you're exactly what you're saying, you know? Just knowing it's like, yes, bitch, I got you.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yes, like zeroing in on somebody. Yeah. And just going to town. Yes. And I feel like that's lost in translation a lot. I don't think that unless you're actually a stripper that you like get that, you know, that that's a part of the job. And then it's such a gratifying part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like real connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something, connecting and then how complex that can be too. How you can like be so guarded in many ways on the job and be so open in other ways to have those like meaningful connections with people. I don't think no one will ever understand that but another stripper, you know?
You're right. Yeah, you're totally right. And it's, you just said it in a way where I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Where I'm like, you can't know like very certain things about me. However, I'll tell you shit that like most people in my life don't know, you know?
Exactly.
More complicated. Yeah. So speaking of complicated things, you're also an activist and advocate and you work with Swan, Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being an activist for sex workers is a big job, big task. So what is your work like over there? What's Swan up to? We need to get fully updated on them.
Yes, SWAN. Okay, SWAN, let me just break down the acronym real quick. Stands for the Sex Workers Alliance of Nevada. And what we're really focusing on right now is creating sanctuary spaces that uplift and connect other sex workers and provide resources when we can. That is definitely looking a lot different during COVID than it was before. Before COVID, we were really aiming to put together a lot of events that just connected us outside of the job, you know, or jobs, if you will, because we're sex workers from different factions of sex work. And that really stemmed from wanting to promote, you know, just more of what we were talking about earlier, like this pride in what we do, and maybe not so much pride in a way where you're like coming out of it with a pom-pom going, yay, sex worker, yay, stripping, but just at least feeling like, yes, what I do is important work and you know, and it's nice to like feel less alone in like the civilian world and all its stigma coming at you, right? And we like collectively definitely have done like some really fun things, putting together events. But also since COVID happened, we've really been working on like mutual aid, and we've had some rent raising parties, and yeah, just like figuring out how to be more available to those in need. And if any of us have it, we give it, and just kind of, I would say moving forward, you know, just trying to figure out how to get back to doing what we initially intended on doing. You know, it's we've got other things happening too. There's definitely some legislative work being done.
That's great.
And what's really cool is that because there are different sex workers from different factions of sex work, we all have issues that are important to us, and that we kind of individually take the lead on. So there are like different balls going at once, which is really nice. I think that really helps momentum in a lot of ways. So you don't have like an entire group of people focused on one thing at a time, because sometimes that one thing isn't the most important thing for everyone. And so we're really, I'm really proud of Swan, actually. We're super well organized in that way, where we have our meetings twice a month. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're closed to members who are already in it. But for the open meetings, we encourage folks who just want to pop in and learn more and see what we do and what's available to them in terms of like resources. Yeah. And advocacy and that kind of thing.
I would love to come to one of those sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love that. And then also, when you're working on the legislation, is that state legislation, or are you working on a federal level, or both?
Both. I mean, there was do you know the Woodhull Sexual Summit that happens in DC? That happens once a year, and we had members go last year to kind of learn a lot about what other sex worker advocacy groups were doing, and yeah, came home with a lot of knowledge on how to apply just how to apply our energy and our efforts in a way that could get things done on a federal level.
Great.
Yeah.
Like decrim?
Yeah. Oh, say it again. What?
And like the Earn It Act.
Yes, and it's amazing because I think the more we connect with other groups out there, the more powerful we all become, right? And I've been fortunate to like sit in on other people's like Zoom calls and things throughout COVID, people who are in other cities and states, and just kind of learn like what are they doing, how are they doing it. And I think that's really cool. I'm super proud of sex workers as a whole, like in the organizing movement, for first of all being as smart as we are. Holy shit, there's so much intellect out there, and yeah, just like what we're able to harvest and kind of put together on our own.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Very much.
Yeah. And there's so many times I'm like sitting in on these Zooms and I'm just like, wow, where the fuck is my pen? Because I can't keep up. I need to take notes.
Yeah.
And I love that shit. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm consistently impressed. Consistently, like, wow, you're so incredibly intelligent, so smart, and you know so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what gives me.
Want to be fabulous just like these strippers? Pay attention. It's Stripper Tips.
Okay. So my stripper tip would be, and this is coming from a place of like taking skills that we've learned on the job and being able to transfer it to a civilian work, right? One of the things that I'm really stoked about that I think is essential is learning how to rebound quickly and keep moving. And I think, well, I know that is something I learned from stripping, being shut down hard by one customer who you thought was going to get you the bag for the night. And then all of a sudden you're like, what? No, what do you mean? Not even $120 dance? What the fuck? And like having having to take all that like feeling of, you know, just frustration and just like, and move on within a matter of minutes to like the next person with a fresh face and a new game, and then be able to get back like on it and then sell that room or get your money however you needed to get it. You know what I'm saying? Like that is essential, and that's what I learned at the club, and that has served me so well in business outside the club.
So what's something that you would do to like when that would happen, when you would get, you know, turned down and you just had to bounce back? Like what would go through your head to help you overcome that moment?
Good question. I would say it depends on the severity of the shutdown. Yeah. So some folks you could just be like, all right, a couple of deep breaths and a walk around the room and then whatever. And then some people you really got to take 5 minutes in the back, drink a coffee or water, and like tell yourself, literally just be like, okay, I am not the sum of my earnings, right? Which is something that is really hard to detach ourselves from in any sales job. And really just kind of go over in your head all the things that make you great outside of this work, and like put back into perspective and focus that you're this whole human being and that you're here, you know, essentially to make people feel good. You got to go back out there with the fresh energy that's going to help do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I think makes us so strong, is that the continual, like we're salespeople that continually hear no. You know, we hear no so much. And when you hear no that often, you definitely develop thicker skin over time. So something I mentioned before on this podcast is that I ask for 20% off at the grocery store in the checkout line sometimes, just so that I can get turned down.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gotta keep it thick.
Thick. Keep that skin thick.
And, you know, they always say no, and I'm fine. You know, I live, you know.
Get ready for our rapid fire question round. It's time for 4 for 1.
First question, if it were currently possible to travel anywhere in space, how far would you go?
Oh, great question. Oh man, okay, if I were able to do it quickly, I'd leave the galaxy. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to be gone for like fucking 2,000 years.
You don't want to be gone for 2,000 years.
Okay. Yeah, No, I don't. Yeah, if I were able to control the speed of light and how fast I could actually travel, yeah, I would leave the galaxy.
Okay. Tight. Same. Would you rather skydive or deep sea dive?
Ooh, I have skydived a couple times, and it's wonderful, but deep sea diving scares the fuck out of me, so let's do that.
You're going to deep sea dive because you're scared of it? Perfect.
Yeah.
I also am hella terrified of deep sea diving. Like, what? Hence why I also have to do it. If you could time travel, what era would you go to?
This is what comes first in my head, only because I remember reading about it in my early mid-20s. Please don't judge me. I feel like it's kind of cliche, but I remember reading about it and being so fascinated by this little period of time that existed that was like just pure hedonism. Weimar Berlin, between World War I and World War II.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like this pocket of a republic that came up in between the two wars, where, you know, the economy was good, people were stoked, there were no fucking rules, and weird shit was happening everywhere all the time, and it just looked like the most insane place, and I would want to experience that.
That was in Berlin, in between the two world wars?
Yeah, Weimar Berlin.
Weimar Berlin. Amazing. I'm going to look that up.
Yes.
Last one. What is the most bonkers, non-sexual thing a customer has ever said to you?
Oh, God. question. Oh man, all of them. It's a really hard one. I'm like, this is 9 years of tequila drinking I gotta sift through. Okay, it's not Bonkers. I'm gonna have to kind of pivot a little with this. But it was something fascinating that I learned. We get a lot of military people in Vegas, right? Because we have a base. And I met for the first time, and I'm from Jersey, so excuse me if I say this wrong, but submariners or submariners, I'm not quite sure the pronunciation.
I like submariners.
Yeah, like the people who live on the submarine, and they go down and they're there for a very long time, right? And so I learned that shit gets weird down there. And well, I remember having this conversation with a young man. I think he was in his early 20s. And he was telling me how there's like a whole theater that the submariners like end up putting on for each other, and I thought there was something really beautiful about that. Like they have, because they're alone and they're down there for months at a time, and there's nothing to do and there's no Wi-Fi, right? It's like they put on like productions, and they sing or they dance and they act and they entertain each other.
That is bonkers. I had no idea.
And I just love that so much. And I just remember having like this real moment of like, aw.
Yeah, that is cool. I think that's bonkers. Submarine dudes put on theater shows for each other while they're under the ocean. Like,
yeah. So they fucking don't go crazy. Like, yeah. So on our deep sea exploration, that's probably, we're going to float by a fucking submarine. There's going to be a bunch of
peek in the windows.
Exactly. And you're
What the
good.
fuck?
Amazing. I love how that full circled just now. Sick. Love the answers. Love this interview. Valerie, please tell everyone how we can find out more about you and follow you on all the things.
Yes. Okay, you can follow me personally at Valerie Stunning on Instagram. I'm on Facebook with that too, but it's really just pushover from Instagram, so just follow me there. And if you're looking to get directly in touch with me, I do have to say this, DM is not the best way. Just send me an email, valeriestunning@gmail.com. I can't promise I can get back to everyone, but I do my best. And I do like when people reach out and like, you know, share good vibes with me. That's really nice.
Yeah, you inspire a lot of people. I'm sure you get reached out to often.
I do get reached out to often. And you know what? It's a give and take. Like for the folks that feel like I'm inspiring to them, it is equally inspiring for me to like hear from people and to feel connected to others. And that gets me through some of this dark COVID shit.
Definitely. I feel that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And for Paradise City Creamery, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We're tweeting now. Yes. And eventually one day we might be shipping things. We're not at the moment, so just add us as a destination if you don't live in Vegas to come visit.
Oh, shipping. Oh, nice.
Maybe.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and like sharing what's going on in your world. Really appreciate it. It was so good talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was really cathartic. I needed to like talk to other strippers about stripper shit, and I appreciate you so much. You're doing important work.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I have so much inspiration to pull from people like you and from all of the people who listen to this show. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure you continue to tune in and rate, review, and subscribe. Yeah, thank you so much, Valerie. I hope to talk to you again very soon. And I'd love to have you on again in the future because I plan on doing this for a while. So
I'm here for you whenever you need me.
awesome. All right, everyone. Have a great day out there. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
We're now accepting 4-for-1 submissions from our listeners. You can send them in via Instagram at YAS a Stripper Podcast or on Twitter at YAS a Stripper Pod. Make sure to follow all the things and email any questions or concerns to YAS a Stripper Podcast at gmail.com. Tune in every Wednesday. See you soon.